Welcome to She Loves the Grid, where we discuss all things F1. Whether it's happening on the track, in the paddock, or beyond the grid, we'll talk about it all.
And here we are, back to She Loves the Grid, an in-between week. And hello, I am Claire.
I'm Diane.
I'm in a different location, as we all can tell, with my plain white wall back in the USA.
Yay! You're only 3 hours ahead now instead of 9.
Yeah, only 3 hours. I can't believe I get to looking at them. I'm going to be in the States for like 6 weeks. It's crazy.
That's crazy. Oh,
it's
my
the
goodness.
longest I've been away from my husband in our 30-year relationship.
Really? Is it really?
Yeah.
I mean, that is a long time. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
Wow.
the longest I think we've been apart before is a couple weeks. Well, I mean, he was in the hospital for a few weeks, but I could still go see him. But, like physically apart, I think the longest business trip I took was 3 weeks to the Philippines. So that's the longest we've been apart.
Oh, my goodness. That's amazing. Well,
crazy, huh?
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
That's it. Well, how has your week been?
Good. It's always busy. I feel like it just is. Work is busy, life is busy, but in really good ways. So, yes, just checking off that to-do list. That is my.
I am loving the haircut. I just have to tell you. Just love it.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you.
love it. For those who are on our YouTube channel, Diane getting your haircut about a week and a half ago. It's loving it.
Yeah, it just, well, it needs to be washed, but it's easy. I love that.
It's cute. It's cute. I had someone tell me today, because we're selling our house in Florida, because that's been my week, trying to get it ready to go. And we were donating some rock crystals that my son has collected since he was little. He's 28. And I said something to the guy about being my age. And he's like, because, Gen X, we'll just leave it at that. And he goes, no, you look like you're 30. And I'm like, I love you. He's 28 and I'm his mother, but we'll just leave it at that. So this is good.
It's the no wrinkles. That's the thing.
It's all good. All right. Well, how is our in-between week? I think it's going to be a short one for us. So it says right in between getting ready for China. So how are we at? What should we talk about first?
Let's talk about the schedule for next year.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. We're already planning. We got 2 trips planned for this year. Now we've got to start planning for next year.
I know. And I already know what I am eyeballing for next year. So, in case you didn't know, the FIA released the Formula One 2025 calendar. It's a little earlier than they usually release it. So I was kind of surprised. I was like, wait, is this? But it really was the FIA website. And it's the 75th anniversary of Formula One. So I'm guessing there will be a lot of maybe pomp and circumstance around some of these races, but just the year in general. But you'll notice, wait, how many races do we have? Is it still 24? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
5. So we're staying at 24 races. But you'll notice that Australia is back to being the first race of the season. That's how it always used to be. And then the last couple of years, it switched to Bahrain and then Saudi Arabia. But we're back to Australia. China is going to be way earlier in the season because we're just going to China now. And it's the end of April. Next year, they'll be almost a whole month earlier than Japan, then Bahrain, then Saudi Arabia. So doing that, flipping Australia back to being first, kind of gets us away from those Saturday races due to the holidays that were happening in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. So I think flipping that's going to be a little bit easier for everybody. Let's see what else. Spain, the other thing I noticed, Spain is back to the end of May, beginning of June. This year it's more towards the middle to the closer to the end of June.
Yeah.
I think. But otherwise, for the most part, I think everybody else is about the same. So yeah, who's going to we've got to figure out our trips for next year. I saw, who was it? Spa is already putting their tickets on sale. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We're going to see a lot more of that, but I think that's really exciting.
I'm looking at it all and it's like, well, let's see. Do the Austin one looks like it's in October?
Yeah.
That would be our 29th year anniversary of our friendship. Because we met like in October.
That would be really fun. Or Mexico.
Mexico would be even more fun, I think.
Mexico
Yeah.
over Austin. I've been to Austin, but Austin's fun. Like, I think Austin's a really good time.
Mexico would be really cool too. Yeah, I think I would prefer Mexico. Okay, we got to get the planning. We should.
Yes,
we should
so this year, the way we picked, I don't know that we talked about this, but the way that we picked our races for this year is we each threw in our top 3 options, and then we drew them out of a hat. And I think we had to substitute because Monaco was one that was drawn, but it was a little too late in the planning session for doing Monaco. I think we need to do more research on that. So maybe we'll do the same this year. We'll throw them all in a hat and pick out 2 or 3 races. And then then we make it happen. We've made it happen so far for this year, and it's going to be really fun. So
that's going to be so much fun.
75 years. All right. So very quickly before we jump into this, but Renault, there was some rumors this week that Renault was going to sell Alpine. But then Renault came out and said, no, we're not. That's not true at all. But
interesting.
I mean, we know last year that the president of Renault was not happy with things, and that's why Otmar got axed. Like they have been pouring a lot of money into this team, and for it to go the way that it is this year, I kind of could see them saying peace out, but they've got their other it was a WEC team, so I don't know. I don't know that they would totally get out of it, but that was one of the rumors. But Fernando, that was the biggest news this week.
I know, and I love that. I mean, he signed as a driver through 2026, which would be the new rules, the new car setup, which will be fascinating. But he inferred that he signed for like a longer term relationship after that. So I don't want to see him stop driving, but it's just really neat to see his commitment to Aston Martin beyond that. And he's got such great strategy. I could see him be a great principal. I could see him be a great strategist. He would be amazing.
That would be so interesting. He did say that he will be at least 45 and still racing. So I don't even know if after 2026, I mean, I guess maybe that's when he'll decide, but he did say that he'll be there long after. And I think it's because maybe he will move into a principal role, but he'll probably for sure be a consultant. He said like it made no sense for him to leave Aston Martin with all the stuff that they are building up. And with 2026, like you said, being the new regulations, he said he's too excited about what they're doing to want to step away. And he wanted to make sure it was a multi-year contract so he could be there for all of that. So, I mean, there's no doubt that him coming into that team and giving his input on the car and everything else has definitely helped kind of propel them up. So I think that's so exciting. Like, I'm not mad that we're going to see Alonso on the track for the next years.
I like that consistency too. I mean, I know drivers move around and whatnot, but it's nice to see some that stick around for several years and try to see it play out through the bad and the good and see the upswing and really see it play out. And Aston Martin, he came and they went leaps and bounds last year, and then they kind of, but I like his commitment and his faith that he has, and just knowing where they're going. So that gives me a little bit of excitement that we've got more cool stuff coming.
Yeah, I think as it should, because I don't think Fernando would stick around with this team or maybe in the sport at all if Aston Martin didn't have some really cool stuff that he knows is happening behind the scenes. So I think that says a lot. And oh yeah, you might want to get on board if you're not an Aston Martin fan, because they definitely have stuff in the works. The other thing was, prior to Fernando announcing, is earlier in the week, there was a lot of rumors going around that Aston Martin wanted Sainz and that they were going to sign Sainz. And so there was some stuff saying that there was one faction of Aston Martin that wanted Carlos on the team, and then another section that wanted Fernando. Clearly not going to get rid of Lance. Again, Lance isn't going to go anywhere. He wants to win, and if the team's doing great things, I don't see him leaving the team. But I started to wonder when Fernando finally announced it, I was like, okay, are they just responding to the rumors? Did they want to announce it this early? Was that the plan? Or was it because of all the rumors going around about Sainz going to Aston Martin that they decided it's time? We need to announce it.
And it might have been some of it, because they want to make sure that they give confidence in the Aston Martin family, right? And the whole team and everybody that's around, that there's not any uncertainties. And if there's only so much transparency you can do in this world, right? And such a public sport, such as it's out there, somebody's going to leak it. Somebody's going to say something. Might as well get it out there, get it signed, get it done, and let everybody in on it. So I appreciate them moving forward, being transparent, and then I don't know if now's the right time to put up the driver lineup, but there's so many gaps and holes.
Yes. Well, let's put it up while we talk about so the one thing is when Fernando was signed, it was like, okay, well, that's one less place that Carlos has to go. And again, if you're on our YouTube, we've got what the current 2025 driver lineup looks like. And I mean, there's now the talk is back to Carlos going to Mercedes, but Toto has been very vocal about saying he's not going to rush this decision. And I really think he's waiting, especially to see what Kimi Antonelli does in a couple weeks when he test drives one of the older Mercedes cars before he makes a decision. So, I mean, for Carlos, he's just waiting around. He's just waiting around. But right now we don't know who's going to partner with Max at Red Bull, but my guess is, and I've been saying this for weeks, is it's going to stay Sergio. That he's not giving them a reason to let him go, in my opinion.
I agree. I don't see any other reason unless he just decides he wants to retire, but he hasn't given any of those indications either.
Yeah, exactly. And again, with Aston Martin, I don't see Lance leaving the team. I don't know why he would. He's doing fine. I know people give him a hard time, why is he in the sport? Daddy's money. But he also has been in the top 10 of the drivers. So, and if Aston Martin has all these great plans, I don't see him leaving. So I feel like those two, in my opinion, are kind of tied up. Both seats are open at Williams. Both seats are open at Kick Sauber. Both seats are open at Haas, although there's been a lot of talk of Ollie Behrman going to Haas next year, that kind of being sewed up. Both seats are open at VCARB. Both seats are open at Alpine. And then who's going to partner with George at Mercedes?
I look at Alpine, and unless Alpine gets with that car, who this year? I mean, I don't know. I go back and look at Aston Martin. They weren't having the best time. They got Carlos in there, or not Carlos. They got Orlando in there with this promise of this is what we're doing. Here's how we're going to get better, right? And I just wonder with Alpine, they're having such a horrible year, wooing drivers and convincing drivers to be at Alpine. What package? What are you going to bring to them to say we want you here? And oh yeah, we're not going to have a crap car,
right?
Unless they show some promise of this year. What are they going to be left with? Are they going to have to wait till they start showing promise and improvements in their car? Or are they just going to get sloppy seconds? What's left over?
I mean, they could Alpine. They could stay with Pierre and Esteban. I mean, I guess if I'm one of those drivers, I might stay just because it's a seat, right? Because what we pretty much have left, if you think Mercedes, take them out, we've taken out Red Bull, we've taken out Aston Martin. Mercedes may go Carlos, they may go Kimi Antonelli. You're left with kind of the bottom part of the grid. None of these teams, if I am a lot of these drivers, I might not want to be there for the most part. A Carlos, it breaks my heart to think about him going to some of these teams. There's been talk that Kick Sauber, Audi, they're kind of all one and the same, is also looking at moving Yuki over. So
I would love to see. I mean, I don't know. What would you think of Carlos at VCARB? I mean, it's a back door into Red Bull.
But he was a Red Bull driver before. He's been there, done that. I mean, I guess a seat is a seat. I'd almost rather him have a seat than sit out and wait for, Sauber or Audi to come up. I don't know. I
It's
just feel
interesting
like
what
you're
you're.
in such a fast car with the Ferrari this year, and you're on the podium 100% of the
Yeah,
time in the first 4 races. To go to a car that struggles is going to be awful.
that's gonna be awful. You know, two things come to mind right now. Just one, what you just said about Yuki. I was just watching an analysis. It was, I don't know where it was at, about the whole talk about Yuki coming over and Honda, and why, the importance of Yuki or a Japanese driver being on an RB team because of the Honda engine, and they're getting rid of the Honda engine. That makes me even think, what you're saying about Yuki being wooed away unless he gets pushed up to a higher seat, which I agree with you about Sergio. He could be pulled away to somebody else just because IndyCar may not want him anymore, because if they're not kind of tethered to him, or because of Honda, that really has a lot of play into it, and they're not just because he's talented.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the reason why Yuki has been this long is because he is tied to Honda. But I think Honda is leaving Red Bull. I don't think it's the other way around.
Yeah.
That's
Agreed.
why Red Bull went to Ford, is because they thought Honda was getting out of the game, and Honda's like, "Oh, surprise! No, we're not." So
Just getting in the game with you.
yeah. So I think it's going to be, oh my goodness, it's going to be so interesting. And I wonder, because silly season has started so early, I wonder how quickly some of these other contracts are going to start getting wrapped up, because I can imagine behind the scenes as each seat gets filled as a new contract, because we had more than half the grid was out of their contracts, and each one, Leclerc, Hamilton, Alonso, as they are all signing their contracts earlier and earlier this year, if I'm a driver at one of these other teams, I might start to panic a little bit. Like, what's left, and when are they going to start? When are we going to start getting these signed? I don't know.
And my only other observations I have to say, and I know I'm new to the sport and I haven't had a lot of time to watch teams change, but looking at Hamilton and Leclerc together, still just,
It's weird.
I have to get used to it.
I have
seeing
to get
Hamilton in red, seeing Hamilton not at Mercedes, it's just,
it's so weird. It's so weird. I
wow.
don't. Yeah.
I mean, I'm excited for him. Very excited for him. It's just, wow. Just not something I expected. It's just
Agreed. And I think I have a harder time with it, especially because, like, so far, granted, we still got 20 races to go, but Carlos is leading the team there this year.
Yeah.
And so it's so weird to not see his face in the lineup for 2025. Like, yeah, I'm sure Lewis is happy. One thing, talking about 2026, because, drivers might be signing 1-year contracts or 2-year contracts. They have noticed that the active aerodynamics are showing alarming results in sim testing so far for the 2026 cars. So the FIA decided that the 2026 active aerodynamic plan must incorporate both the front and the rear wing moving together. And motorsport.com is saying when the engine is at max power and the rear wing is in the minimum load configuration, the car is undrivable. And what they're seeing during the simulation testing is lots of examples of spinning on the straights when the car is accelerating, the car is spinning, and then the drivers are unable to take even the smallest curves without the rear end stepping out. Wow.
A lot of work. I mean, at least they've got a year, but holy cow.
Yeah. But if you are trying to solve for that, I mean, like you said, you do have a year, but oh my goodness. Well, they might need
to.
They
also have to plan for 2025. I mean, oh my gosh. Like,
yeah.
Wow.
You might have to rethink that front and rear wing moving together. If that's what it is.
What idea was that? Okay. That's the other thing I think is interesting. That's something I definitely want to dig into some more. Whoever comes up with these standards for 2026, what engineer came up with them, and were they plausible enough to know that it's almost like a mystery? Okay, we have this little mystery box. We want you to do this, but we don't know if it's going to work. Go figure it out.
I mean, I guess
but
that's part of it is like, how do you interpret the rules and how do you make it work? So, but if more than one car is doing that, I don't know. Is it
Adrian Newey's car is doing it?
What's that?
If Adrian Newey's car is doing it, there's some issues.
Yeah, and I don't know who, they didn't say whose cars are doing that, but yeah, if
Wow.
So we'll
I have
keep
to watch that one.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on that. And then some fun driver stuff. So Sergio is the only driver to not be overtaken yet this year, and he's also had the most overtakes this season with 13. So not bad stat.
Not bad. Yeah, he's just quietly doing his thing. And I think he's gonna. Like I said, they don't have a reason right now to not have him have a seat.
Yeah, I can't think. I mean, you can kind of say like the overtakes. I don't know, where's he been starting? Because sometimes last year he was starting further back and then gaining ground, or it could be from the pits and then, he's having make up space. But still, nobody's overtaken him. So Minister of Defense right there for you. Not too shabby. And then Lando was named one of the 30 under 30 for Forbes Europe Sports and Games for 2024. So good job, Lando. When you think about how much stuff he's got going on, it is kind of cool. Like he's got his merch lines and he's got his quad business thing going on. He's got a lot of stuff going on outside of just being an F1 driver. So nice job, Lando.
Very smart too. Very smart.
Very smart.
This sport could end at any minute. Never know. I mean, not just because if you could make a fatal error, you could just lose your funding. There's just so many different things you could call it quits on. So it's good that they have other means going on. So very smart.
I love that. There was also an article that came out this week with Lando talking about how much he really is very critical of himself and he's always thinking and what could he have done better? What did he do well? What could he improve? So he said sometimes he knows he kind of comes across, I don't know, like angry or sad or whatever, but he said he's just always thinking about what he can be doing to be better. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
I did that was cute. There was one thing that I saw this week was just all the sleeping positions of Lando. It reminds me I do the same thing of my dog. We have all these pictures of him sleeping. Like, oh, here's Lando asleep here. Here's him asleep there. It was really cute.
I didn't see that. That's cute.
I'll have to find it and send it. It was adorable.
He is adorable. I love Lando. I love Lando. All right, let's talk real quick about next week because we've got a race and it's at midnight my time, so I will not be staying up. That's my late race song. So first of all, Zhou's home race. He is the first Chinese driver to ever race there. So this is going to be a big deal. And I'm glad he gets to do it because what if he doesn't get a seat next year? So I'm glad
it's been quiet, nondescript, not really pretty. I mean, he was on a team last year that was quiet and overlooked and everything. And now the team is, other than the bright green and their cute little antics and stuff between him and Bottas, it's been kind of...
they're kind of a team we forget about. Like you said, last year, they weren't even in Drive to Survive. I know we've mentioned that several times over our podcast this year, but people do forget about them. And I worry, we talked about that last week. You can go listen to that episode where we talk about Zhou and where he might end up next year. But anyway, so this week he's already posted, like he's been doing so much stuff in China, all kinds of meet and greets and different things. So he's already been very busy. So if you're on our YouTube page, this is his special helmet for this race. I love it. It's inspired by Shanghai's underground and different landmarks. And I love on the back, the Zhou of little Zhou, the picture of little Zhou waving the flag at the Chinese Grand Prix. Like, how cute is that? And now he's racing in it.
I know. I love it.
I think it's
I think it's so cool. I love the lines. I love that. I love it's clean and just interesting. And you can't see the top of the lid that easily here, but I love it's got that iconic, that blue and whatnot from the Grand Prix. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. I think that's on his helmet now. I think. But I loved it. I like what you said. It's very clean. And my first thought without reading like what his inspiration was for this was like, okay, this has got to be like a metro or a tube, kind of mapping. And I think that's really fun because it's all different things in Shanghai. You've got the little panda bears on it and different landmarks. And I just think that's so cool. I'm excited for him to have this experience of being a home race. Good for him. Because you know what? We haven't been at this track since 2019. It's a little bit crazy. So
it's been a little different since 2019. Shall we go to that one?
What's that?
Shall we go to that slide?
Let me fill everybody what 2019. So this is what I heard it was like 2019. There was only about 40% of the stands were full. And so the promoter put covers over the seats. You know how they'll put those big banners across, and they had different marketing things on it. So it didn't look as bad. But this year, the 3-day tickets are like $67-ish US dollars for 3 days.
Why didn't we go to China?
I know. Like if I knew it was $67, we could have totally gone. But it makes me wonder because 2019, that was before Drive to Survive came out. It's before like the F1 went crazy, especially in the US. So I wonder, and with the Chinese driver, I wonder if it will be different this year. I wonder what that's going to look like.
So.
I would hope so. But yeah, I've never seen this race. You've never seen this race. We have no idea really what to expect. But there's also drivers that have never raced here before. So Yuki, Zhou, Oscar, and Logan have never raced at this track. So 4 of our 20 drivers. Alex, Lando, and George have only raced there one time as a rookie. So that's what, like, almost half the drivers have maybe raced there once or not at all. Insane. But yeah, let's put up. So Claire's got a graphic that shows the then and now. So back in 2019 and where we're at now. So Hamilton and Bottas were racing together. Lando was at McLaren. Lando and Carlos Sainz. Stroll and Perez I think they were India or Force India at that time. Kimi Räikkönen. Kimi was there with Alfa Romeo and Giovinazzi, who he's still he's not the reserve driver for Ferrari anymore, but he did win Le Mans with them. It's Le Mans, right? And then Hülkenberg and Ricciardo, that was when Daniel went to Renault. Terrible. Yeah. They messed him up big time. Seb was racing with Charles Leclerc at Ferrari. Like, what? I missed out on that whole. That's crazy. Gasly was Max's teammate. So Max must have been pretty new then.
Yeah.
Maybe a year. That might have been his second year. Albon was at Toro Rosso. I don't know how you say his name.
Kvyat, I think.
Yeah, that's Penelope's dad. Max, everybody last week was showing all the videos of Penelope, saying "Go Max," and then Kevin Magnussen. He's still with his team, and Grosjean. So totally different.
Don't forget Williams. We have Williams.
Oh, did I say Williams? Oh
no.
Oh,
they're at the bottom.
George Russell. That's when he was at Williams. Oh my gosh. So, I mean, we've still got some of these drivers on the grid. Some of them, I mean, there's quite a few that are no longer obviously in F1. And then others are all over. Hülkenberg went from Renault to Haas, and K-Mag still. Albon's over at Williams. Gasly at Alpine.
Yeah, and just to call out, because obviously you can see, appreciate Planet F1 pulling this together, because this is a really cool graphic to see this comparison. It's so neat to see this, the flashback and the comparison. I can't believe it's been 5 years since we've been at the Chinese Grand Prix.
5 years. And again, almost half of the drivers have never raced here or only raced here once. And get this, it's our very first sprint race of the season. So they get one practice. That's it.
Oh, yes.
One practice. So you got to learn the track, which is Very interesting. And we'll talk about that in a second, but you've got to learn the track. So it's going to be practice, then sprint shootout, I think is what they call it. Then the sprint race, then qualifying, then the race on Sunday. So they've got one session to figure it out. It's going to be.
I feel bad for those that have never been there, especially like the likes of Logan, that I feel like his confidence is still a little shaken, because he's, and then, and then Joe, it's going to be a lot of pressure on him. Being there and that car that they've been struggling with. It's going to make for a very interesting race. It really is.
I think so. And I think the pressure is not even just on Joe, because I feel like if his car's performing, he was doing all right. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure. And I think I said this last week on the stake team is like, you guys better have the pit stops figured out, and you better have a car that doesn't need to be retired, because how awful would that be? He had to retire that car early last race. Like, that would just be terrible. So it's not just on him. Like, they've got to pull it together. Let's look at the track really quickly. So the track is very unique. When I pulled this up yesterday, and again, on our YouTube channel, you can see it. I was like, look at turns 1 and 2 and 3. That's crazy. The track itself is designed to look like the Chinese symbol for Sheng, which means upwards. But that first corner, I don't know if anybody else does that. It's like so kind of wide. And then at 3, just really that chicane right there is crazy. So it's a very unique turns 1 and 2. Then they dart left and they go 3 and 4. There's super high G-force turns 7 and 8. And apparently the drivers love that section. Very interesting. There's low speeds corners. There's long braking zones. And then you've got that very long back straight. It's one of the longest straights on the calendar. It's 1.2 kilometer stretch that goes from 13 to 14. So very, very interesting. There's 2 DRS zones. It's going to be 56 laps, and the circuit length is 5.451 kilometers. So I'm very excited to see how this race goes. I'm very excited to see that whole 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8 looks very interesting. And then really picking up speed, I'm guessing between 13 and 14. So
I like that the start is a little bit back from the 1, 2, 3, because you imagine a 1, 2, 3, and that's like, at least they get a little bit of a way to, pull away from each other before they hit into 1, 2, 3, and that like kind of turning back on themselves. But that's a crazy little section. Yeah, I'm excited. This is going to be a really cool race. It's really neat too, because it's, all the other ones, and me being in my second year really avidly watching, I've seen the other tracks, and it's like I'm getting to pick up new things at these tracks. This is like a whole brand new thing. It's like watching brand new again. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm going to be so excited. I think it's going to be throwing it into the mix with a sprint race, and the first sprint race of the season is really like, wow, way to throw the drama in there. Like making this our very first sprint race. So they're going to have to get it dialed in on.
It's interesting that lap record is from Schumacher from the very first Grand Prix there from 20 years ago.
That is crazy. Well, we'll see. I was going to say, I bet Max breaks that.
Yeah, I'm expecting that. We'll see.
I mean, think of
how to look at to see if he's broke which ones he's broken over the last year or two with that RB being so fast.
Yeah,
I'll have to check into that, because that's a good
point. But I mean, the cars are so different in the last 20 years. So somebody's going to break that lap record. I'm guessing.
Yeah,
that's a total guess. But yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited for this.
So it's at midnight your time. Means it's 3 a.m. for me now that I'm on the East Coast of the U.S.
I will not be staying up to watch it. Qualifying for the races, I think, at the same time. I know practice is at like 7:30 or 8:30 for me at night on Thursday. So, yeah.
I think I can handle the practices. I think
the qualifying might be at 8. I mean, the sprint actually might be at 8 o'clock my time on Friday. So that'll be a fun Friday night. Woo!
Yeah, the sprint is 11 o'clock for me. I can watch that Friday night. That's not a problem. Qualifying 3 in the morning. Yeah, 3 in the morning for me.
Ooh. Well, we'll be watching the next morning.
I don't know. I'll try to stay up. So I can get our results out immediately.
Oh, I think it'll be fine if they're not out. That's
well, I'm excited. And then we'll have a wrap up next week, and just exciting.
Yep. So here we go. First sprint of the season.
Here we go.
Love it.
Well, thanks a lot. And we will see you guys in a week.
Yes. Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and a review. To stay up to date with She Loves the Grid and get all the behind-the-scenes content, you can follow us on Instagram at She Loves the Grid and on Facebook at facebook.com/She Loves the Grid. Thank you for joining us for the ride this week.